has on their grades, their family interaction, and the potential medical issues. When I was a kid, cell phones were relatively new, so I didn't have to worry about it as much. But when I walk into the doctor's office, I see a 9-year-old kid and they've got a cell phone in their hand, a smartphone at that. Me personally, I have a basic phone because I don't use my phone that much. But this kid is using a high-tech phone. Now, I'm thinking maybe it's the parents. But then the parent pulls out their cell phone. I think to myself, why does this little kid have a better cell phone than me? Now I know that cell phones are a good way to keep track of your kids and keep in contact with them. But I don't think that they should have their own cell phone. When I was a kid and I wanted to go to the movies with my friends on the weekend, I would ask my mom if I could borrow her cell phone. That way she could use the landline if she needed to get in contact with me or I need to get in contact with her. Now, as we all know, grades are very important so that kids can graduate from high school and move on to college. But if young kids are allowed to have their own cell phone, that dream could be lost. Keeping a kid's attention is very hard, especially when they're young, and even harder when they're older. Jessie Sasia, a former NYC teacher, said that she would often turn around from Blackboard and find that her students were either texting or playing games on their phones. The average attention span of an elementary school student is 15 to 20 minutes. An average middle schooler's attention span is 30 minutes. If their attention span is already that short, how can we expect them to get any better if we throw a cell phone into the mix to make a distraction when they go to high school? Now, grades are very important, but a kid's home life and their interaction and relationship with their parents can also be affected by cell phone use. Cell phones are an ever-evolving technology, and nowadays kids are turning to digital media such as games, PS3, any number of console for entertainment as opposed to spending quality time with their parents or going outside like I used to when I was a kid. We didn't have all this stuff where it was like Xbox, PS3. If I wanted to have fun, I had to use my imagination and go outside. Now, cell phones are ever evolving, like I said. So with the increase of games and everything like that, kids are turning to the iPhones and the Droids that can take all these games as opposed to going out and getting some physical exercise. Another thing is that when I was growing up, family dinner was a must. Whether it was my mom coming home from work with a bucket of KFC or something like that, we always sat around the table, we always talked about our day, had that interaction and bonding. Nowadays, yeah, they might have that, but kids might be texting their friends, especially if they're teenagers, and be paying more attention to their phone than they are their family and that interaction that they're having. Another thing that's being lost by cell phone usage is human contact. Kids nowadays are texting their parents from like their basement where they're playing their PS3 and saying, hey, can I have a pop or can I have a soda or whatever? And their parents are bringing it down to them as opposed to them getting up and going up and getting it. Another part of the human contact that they're losing is that kids are texting their parents with important issues as opposed to going and talking to them in person. Family interaction is very important and is obviously being affected by kids using their cell phone. But there are also medical risks associated with kids using cell phones too much, such as carpal tunnel syndrome. According to Dr. Elena Levine, carpal tunnel syndrome mostly affects adults, but because of the repetitive motion of texting, more and more teens are being diagnosed with carpal tunnel today. Some teens have been reported to have sent between 75 and 100 texts in a single day. I don't know about you, but that seems kind of ridiculous. Not only is it affecting their hands due to carpal tunnel syndrome, but it's also affecting their sleep habits. Now, most people think that when they send a young kid to bed, hey, they're going to go to sleep. But if kids are allowed to have their own cell phones and have it with them in their room, they won't just stop after you tell them to go to bed. Some kids have been reported to have stayed up until 2 a.m. texting. According to the Cleveland Clinic, teens and tweens will stay up until 2 a.m. or later texting, then drag themselves out of bed in the morning to go to school. Therefore, they aren't paying attention in school and their grades are affected. Not only that, but the lack of sleep can also be associated with obesity. Today I've presented facts associated with kids failing classes because of cell phone use. I've also discussed how family interaction is suffering at the hands of this ever-evolving technology. Finally, I explained a few of the many medical risks associated with kids having their own cell phone.